Hey guys, Alex here, and if you haven't watched already, I did my worst films of 2018 video, so if you want to get the bad stuff out of the way, go click on that video, have some fun. But in the meantime, in this video, I will be talking about my favorite films of 2018, because even though there were bad stuff, there were a heck of a lot of good stuff that I enjoyed. So let's get into it. My top 10 favorite movies of 2018. So without further ado, here we go! At number 10 is Mary Poppins Returns. I remember enjoying the original movie when I was a little kid, but it was never one of those movies I found myself revisiting as I got older. I was curious about the new film, and I'm a big fan of Emily Blunt, but after seeing the sequel, I was honestly blown away by how good this film was. There were no reuses of old songs. It was all original music that sounded amazing. It was one of the most entertaining films I'd seen all year, down to how it told its story in a creative fashion. I mean, the production design, the fun snappy dialogue, and not to mention the song sequences. The way they were able to enrapture audiences with the different songs through the use of different types of special effects, being hand-drawn animation, CG, practical sets, or even if it was just a simple scene that involved a lot of stupendous dance choreography. It was able to be its own inventive thing while still being a sequel to the classic everyone knows and loves. While it was fun, it was also very heartwarming. The film took its time with some of the more emotional moments. It bears repeating to say this word, but it was completely and utterly delightful. Number 9 is Paddington 2, another family film that I didn't honestly expect to love as much as I did. Like Poppins, it was just another comforting film you could just watch with anybody. Paddington is such an endearing and lovable character that I honestly couldn't get enough of. Hugh Grant also playing a really fun and funny villain. His performance was so much fun, super engaging. And I say it's a great family movie because even though it's lighthearted and child-friendly, it is about family. And the bond Paddington has with his own family, whether in London or in the jungle, I felt was so strong, really held the film together. By the way, if you didn't cry at the end of this film, do you even have a soul? It was funnier, it was more emotional, and probably one of the best sequels in recent years. Number 8 is Isle of Dogs. Wes Anderson is one of my favorite filmmakers, and in my opinion, has hit another home run. It's no surprise that from a visual standpoint, the film looks gorgeous, with the use of color, or how certain shots are positioned, the symmetry, but the story itself I found to be very compelling because of the innovative way it took something that had a political flair to it, and made it very fun and enjoyable, while also having heart amongst the use of characters. The cast he puts together for these movies is no contest. I love the amount of depth they gave to Bryan Cranston's character, and the bond he has with young Atari. The representation of Japanese culture felt fresh compared to what we're used to in Anderson's previous films. It's another Wes Anderson classic in my opinion, and although I knew it would be a feast for the eyes because of the amount of creativity involved in its filmmaking, or for the interesting and quirky dialogue, I'm glad the story was also something I could rapture in just as well. Number 7 is Won't You Be My Neighbor. Hands down one of the single greatest documentaries I've ever seen. It really puts things in perspective for the life of Fred Rogers, and my gosh, what an eye-opener. You just can't help but love this man and what he created to engage younger audiences, and how it even spoke to older audiences. It is an emotional roller coaster, so have some tissues by your side. And while it does tell a super informative story about Fred Rogers and the amazing impact of his show, it had a strong emotional pull that truly made an impact on me even months after seeing the film. Beautiful movie. Number 6 is Mission Impossible Fallout. After watching the previous films to prepare for this one, I'm confident enough to say that this is my favorite film in the entire franchise, and is one of the greatest action films I've seen in years. I loved how the film utilizes the action scenes to tell its story, and to have you be emotionally invested in the conflict at hand. The climax of this movie is insane. Tom Cruise is going to keep acting in films because he should act in films. While he's still able to pull off some amazing stunts, he's still able to give his character weight. Henry Cavill I thought was very underrated. His role felt very genuine to me. I just love that this was an action movie that made the action complement with how it showcased its captivating story and memorable characters. Number 5 is Annihilation. I think one word that best describes this movie is striking. This film, while it may seem like it tells a concrete story at first, completely knocks you off your ass as the second act gets going and eventually leads into one of the most mesmerizing third acts I've ever seen in a sci-fi movie. I loved how surreal it got, the mystery that lies within, because it just makes a film like this have replay value. And while I get a good feel of Natalie Portman's character, I love that I'm able to still appreciate the crazy sci-fi aspects surrounding all the many characterizations of other characters. Alex Garland, I think, is slowly becoming one of the greatest sci-fi movie directors, who I'm dying to see what else he can dish out. Number 4, Aquaman. Might shock some people, and even though I will agree it's not the best superhero comic book movie of the year, or that I've ever seen, it is still super enjoyable and incredibly adventurous. I love that the journey of Arthur Curry felt very believable. There was enough of him to latch onto, for he didn't feel like that perfect, badass hero he might have been painted as in promotional material or previous films. Also, really dug Patrick Wilson as Orm, going for that more antagonistic role. Never saw him do that before, and loved how powerful of a character he was and how motivated the film made him out to be. Amber Heard as Hera also blew me away, and I loved how she worked with Arthur side by side. It was just such an awesome culmination of fantasy, adventure, and sci-fi all in one, and the way the action scenes were assembled, and the use of visual effects, the way they were incorporated, it proved to show how brilliant of a visual director James Wan has become over the years, and I can't wait to see how he could go even bigger and better than this movie possibly. This was still an impressive and amazingly directed and acted film in the DC universe that I'll watch over and over again. Number 3 is Incredibles 2. Those 14 years were worth the wait because not only was it even more action-packed, it was more of that amazing family dynamic that we came to love in the first film. Seeing more of that play out gave the film more of that heart, because even though the superhero aspect is awesome and a blast to watch, it's the characters that make those aspects feel like a lot more than what they already are. It was a fantastic ride that complements the first film well, and what's also great is that the movie makes every character have their moment to shine. The first movie made us love these characters, but the fact that this movie doesn't underuse any of them, and show even more of them, is something to commend. Brad Bird was able to take that same spirit of the original with the family dynamic, and still make a vibrant, colorful, and bodacious action film on top of all of that. I adore this movie. Oh, and it was incredible. Number 2 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Ever since I saw the trailers for this movie, I knew we were in for something special. The way the film chooses to use its visual style and next level animation to tell its story was absolutely phenomenal. I think this is one of the greatest superhero comic book movies we've ever gotten, from a stylistic standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. In terms of filmmaking, it breaks new ground for animation storytelling. Even though it's very fun and explosively awesome to watch, the film still maintains on giving us quality characters and making us care about the journey Miles goes through to be the best Spider-Man he can be. It was hands down my favorite character arc of the year, and the spider ensemble to go along with that was also unforgettable. I did not want this film to end, and I can't wait for a sequel if one is ever brought to fruition, but they're gonna make one, come on. I want to see a sequel so bad now, as well as what other superhero properties or films in general that could be brought out in that same filmmaking animation style. And my number 1 favorite film of 2018 is Avengers: Infinity War. After years and years of quality entertainment from Marvel Studios, we finally have the event movie that is the culmination of the entire Marvel franchise. The film is able to deliver on being some of the most fun I've had in theaters, maybe ever. But the way it tugs on the emotional heartstrings and ends on a hopeless note is something I'm glad we were able to see in this day and age, because as much as I love seeing fun superhero movies with happy endings, I loved how this movie was able to twist it. Say what you will about this movie serving as a prologue or a part 1 for Avengers Endgame, Infinity War was a movie that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, with the end of this story being Thanos won. That's it. That's a definitive ending. Nothing was left open until that post-credit scene went down. It's the one film this year that connected with me the most due to the fact that I've grown to love all these characters and see how they reacted to the major event and conflict at hand. It's the film I've watched the most, the one I still want to keep watching, and has become probably one of my favorite comic book films, or maybe even films ever. It's as perfect of a sequel as it could get for me. And those who say it can't stand on its own are right, because it is a sequel in the Marvel franchise. It does require you to at least be involved with the other characters from previous films, but why wouldn't you be? Watching something like this movie is rewarding because of that. If you're a true fan and you love great sequels to films, you'll love Infinity War. Infinity War was able to deliver on all capacities, and that's why it's my number 1 favorite film of 2018. So thank you all so much for listening to my favorite films of 2018, and if you haven't watched my worst films of 2018 video, you can click that right here, or there's a link in the description box as well. And stay tuned for my next video, being my most anticipated films of 2019. Yeah, there is a lot of films to get through, and it is a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to share all that excitement with you guys. So be sure to look out for that, and if I have it posted already, click somewhere on the screen. So yeah, be sure to watch that, enjoy, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.